Alright, hello and welcome to another tutorial that is very near the end of the saga of daily uploads that I've been doing this summer. So essentially, what this video, it's not going to be about this failed chest plate design I'm wearing. It will actually be more similar to one of these two other failed, successful chest plate designs. Either this design, which I believe was maybe my 13th successful chest plate design, nice pauldrons, classy Ickerson special, or this design, the white chest plate, also with the Ickerson special, but this time it has sigils front and back that I actually stole from somewhere else, but I think they look super duper cool. So I put 4 of them on the front and back of this piece of armor, and I think I put one on my shield as well. But these two different successful chest plate designs are sort of hinting at the topic of the video. And then the third thing that should show what the topic of the video is this sword and shield combo. They're actually chained together, but the chain isn't significant for the video. What's significant is that the front and the blade are both unpainted. That's right, the topic of this video, which should be literally in the title, is spray painting. I've spray painted a ton of stuff over my career, but my last suit of armor was only on a plasticor, and so I didn't want to spray paint any of that because it's just white anyway. So I wanted to take a bit of a renaissance back to the days where I used to spray paint all my stuff. And I actually got pretty good at putting stencils on. One time I actually cut out a stencil of my Instagram handle and spray painted it on my shield. I think I should have that somewhere. I'll show it to you. Yeah, here's the other shield with the insignia spray painted on the front. And here's the shield with my Instagram spray painted on the front. But there are some things I did for this stencil that means that the lettering is like really faded, that I recognize now to be very definitive flaws, and I've learned ways to get around, and I'll hopefully teach you some of those in this video. So essentially in this video I'm going to spray paint this sword and shield and go over some of the techniques I'm using and just sort of demonstrate the way that I like to spray paint things and the way I think it's cool to do. I have a ton of different colors to spray paint I'm going to use for this, but I have a particular design in mind that I'm going to use a stencil for, but I'll get out my spray paint. I essentially have 5 colors for us to work with. I have, obviously, Old Faithful, got black base coat spray paint. I have a gold that looks a little bit more like an orange just because of the way that it reflects. I have a nice can of green, a blue color that I think is going to be central to this, and I have some pink marking paint that's mostly used for grass, but I've used it on the stuff, and that's actually what the Ickerson logo is made out of. I don't think I'm going to use this, but I mean, I could if I needed to. Alright, so last week I was in the House of Aquila, and the House of Aquila has a sigil that is a large bird. Here, let me get out a piece of cardboard. So if you didn't know, the word Aquila literally means like bird sigil or something like that. Like if you Google it on just like Google Images, if you search Aquila, it'll show you like pictures of birds. But the sigil that I was using specifically for all my campers' name tags was a big bird that was kind of like a big line with a hook in the middle, 3 feathers on each, a triangle, a little bit of a pyramid leg, tail, and then sort of a hook head there. That is kind of the Aquila I was using for all my campers. I'll draw maybe a better one. Just really little fast guys. I was doing one on every name tag, and I think today I want to do a base coat of, I think, black spray paint over the whole thing, and then later cut out a stencil of an Aquila and do it in this blue spray paint over top of the black overlay. I think it could look really cool if I do it well. So I'm going to probably spray the whole thing down, let it dry, and then get going on that stencil. So I've set up my little area here with butcher paper. I personally do not fear God, and so I will be spray painting inside at my workstation, which is a little bit of paper to kind of cover the area. I won't really miss too much, but I do have a habit of getting my fingers a little bit spray painted, but I don't really care about that. So I have detached the sword from the shield, and will now be giving just the face plate a layer of spray paint. I personally do not believe in spraying the inside of your shields. Oh, I think you actually can maybe see little itty bitty specks. Oh, maybe not really. Anyway, if you spray paint things you're going to touch or going to bend later in the future, you will get thousands of little chips of paint that come off because, well, paint likes to stick to cardboard. It only likes to stick to flat, dry cardboard. So if you sweat on it or if it ever bends, it will come off. And it does not like to stick to any form of tape that I found. And so it will also come off tape. And this shield is going to be sweat on and has tape on it. So pretty much only the outside is what I plan to actually spray paint. In this case, I'm just going to use a black overcoat with a Rust-Oleum Painter's Touch, paint plus primer. I don't really care the type. It's just whatever. Yeah, I think we're going to go at it with just a base layer. I'm probably going to do outside corner, outside edges, move towards the center. So here goes. Alright, and that is my first layer done. I was in fact a fool and am now experiencing spray paint fumes, so we're going to move the shield outside and let it dry there. Alright, now that we have spray painted our shield, the next step is going to be doing the sword. I think I want to spray most of the sword, but not really the chain, just like maybe the handle and the blade, and then I might do some edge decals along the blade, but I would want to do that after the first coat sets to a little bit. So I think what I might do is I might wrap a piece of butcher paper kind of around the bottom of the handle and then tape the edge so it stays protected, and then spray paint the guard to the tip of the blade. Well, it looks like that came off. Anyway, I'll go get some spare butcher paper and let's see how that goes. Alright, so I made a little bit of a chain bouquet with my just chain here and wrapped the handle around but left the guard exposed just tightly with duct tape. This will be very easy to cut off and then remove the thing. Essentially, the reason why I don't want to spray paint the handle is literally just because I know I'm going to be holding it and I know it will get so like just awfully cover my hand with bits of paint. It will just be awful in the long term, and so for right now I won't do it. I could actually spray paint it and then cover it up with tape or cover it up with something else, but in this case I'm fine with just the cardboard masking tape handle. I just want to spray paint the blade, and so that's what I'll do. So I just spray painted the shield proper black, but I'm kind of thinking it would be sort of cool if I spray painted the sword itself gold and then did pink edge highlights. I think that might be kind of exciting. So I think I will do a gold base coat for the blade. Obviously just on both sides, and I guess here goes. Alright, now that I have properly fumigated my home and prevented all insect life and fungus from growing here for another 1,000 years, I am going to cut out the stencil for this blue spray paint. I have kind of an idea for this Aquila I want to do, but there are some finicky things about this that are going to take a little bit more retooling, let us say. So I think we'll start out with just a basic drawing on an Aquila of this shape. I know I vaguely want it to be about like 10 to 12 inches across and a little bit longer than it is tall because with the tail feathers and everything. So I think we're just gonna do, okay, this is for every single thing, but specifically for stencils because they want to actually look good. When you're drawing stuff, draw over it as many times as humanly possible where you yourself cannot even determine where you actually want the line. And then when you cut it, that's when you actually figure out what the real line is. Like, don't measure twice, cut once. Draw 500 million times, never measure, and then cut once. Like, that's kind of the methodology here. Okay, so in general progression for armor smiths and just for everyone at Adventures in Cardboard, when you're first starting out, you never really measure anything. The only thing you measure is like the length of your vanguard and not a whole lot else. Just because there's not a whole lot to measure. Like, when you're trying to be precise with things, you just sort of size it as to where it feels right, and then just cut it or tape it or staple it there. When you start to get like a little bit more advanced at Adventures in Cardboard, you start measuring things again. You start trying to like figure out exactly how long you want guards, exactly what size you want armor pieces, and like sizing up things. And then you get back around to it, you horseshoe around to never measuring anything and also doing everything off feel. But this time, your feelings are way more precise. So it's just an eternal cycle. But now, as I am a master, I am going to begin the cycle at my standing point, which is literally never measuring anything. So here we go. We know we want the central, like, top wing of the Aquila to be a straight line, and we know we want the arc to kind of dip down there, but we want a head to pop up and kind of protrude out. So on the actual stencil diagram, the feathers, if you could call them that, are very, very thin lines, but on the stencil, I'd like them to be a little bit thicker, just so that they kind of pop a little more. And 3 of them, just like we want on the stencil. And then, let's see. Yes, okay, so kind of to maintain the angles from this center point of sorts. Just a little curve and just a little curve just to make everything look nice. Because honestly, looking nice is more important than being mathematically correct. So here's where things get a little weird. On my little design, the head has a hole in the middle of it, and this huge triangle body segment also has a hole in the middle of it. And to make a hole in a stencil, you need to do the opposite and have a piece there. But that piece is surrounded by what we want to be lines. So here's where things get a little bit funky. What I'm kind of thinking is that I can have this center triangle here be supported by small wires that go to the edges of the stencil and will block spray paint from being in this zone, but will allow it to fill the zone around it, or zones around it. I think that's kind of what I want to try to do. I'm not sure how it's going to go, but I will cut out the whole stencil and then try to reimpose the thing back in the center where it came from. So we'll just do some marking lines here to kind of vaguely figure out where we want, so that we'll see the triangle bit here, which we will keep, and obviously the outside of the stencil is the stencil that we will keep, and we should be able to like 3D line it up exactly where we want in the middle to figure out where the stencil needs to go, where the middle stencil bit needs to go. But right now we need to do this tail section, which when I was doing it on name tags would start out as a diamond and then degrade and become more and more either like a misshapen, kind of like, I don't know, rhombus or something, and sometimes it would just become a flat bit. But it was intended to always be a diamond. And then the legs of the bird, which also kind of look like 4th feathers, are more little bits that come down here on either side and should be vaguely the same height and protrude at the same point. Alright, so the feathers kind of start at the bottom of that. Cool. So I think that looks pretty good as an Aquila. Let's do another final line, all in blue, just around everything. So around each one of the feathers. Oh, those feathers are much different heights. Let's try to make that normal. Okay, so essentially the reason why is because all the feathers are lopsided a little bit. This semicircle is not the same distance all the way around. This protrudes a little bit higher than that side does. So let's maybe try to point that down there. And this is also quite a bit lower, just longer, I guess. And it comes maybe down there. I don't know if that is actually better, but it allegedly lines up better, so I think we'll try to keep it something like that. I also don't know if the middle is on center. Generally, I've found that humans are pretty good at selecting middles, and so it looks like this is pretty vaguely good. But I am a little bit worried about those feathers. Those last 2 feathers are kind of crooked. Well, whatever. Either way, I think it is time for us to cut out the stencil and see what we have. So, here's that. So, normally when you're cutting stuff for Adventures in Cardboard, you want to be more careful about the cardboard that you're cutting out. So like the stuff inside the lines, rather than the stuff outside the lines, because normally the stuff outside the lines is just going to be scrap anyway, so you don't really have to care about it. But with stencils, it's the opposite. You want to be more haphazard the stuff inside the lines and try to preserve the stuff outside of the lines, because that is what is going to have to hold your paint lines in every time you use the stencil. So right here, for these little inside cuts, normally I would be very careful about not slicing through the feather, but because the feather is just going to get discarded anyway, I can actually make really big cuts there and not have to worry. But when I go down to the end of this feather, I have to actually be very careful about not completely cutting through this edge, because that would just ruin the stencil. Like I was saying for the other things, with these center diamond pieces, I want to be really careful about how I cut up the middle bit, but I really don't care about this little surrounding bit, because the surrounding bit is just going to get discarded, but this middle diamond and this triangle are going to be way more important. And those little guidelines that I did are to help us line up where that needs to go inside the open space. Last, we'll do the head of the Aquila. And that should be our stencil all cut out. Now we just need to figure out how to reimpose these two little diamond bits back into the center. I also noticed that this time it is quite off center, so we'll do some restorative cutting just to hopefully turn it back into something more resembling a diamond shape. There we go, those two last little bits. So here's where things get a little bit funky. I have this golden wire here that I think I can either like run over top or stab into the cardboard and then tape to get everything to line up exactly where I want it to be. So I think we're just going to spool off a little length here, cut the wire with the knife, and make a little bit of a round area for the tape to have some surface area on. Make another little bump here, and then maybe another little round area. And so what I'm going to do is tape each side and the middle, and then cut the tape around where the stencil wants to be, so that the stencil will have this little middle bit held on here in the center artificially, and it won't go anywhere. If I just did a straight line and I didn't do this like weird curvy stuff, then it would be able to spin freely. And while that might work, I think holding it all in one dimension will prevent the stencil from like breaking in the future, which is rather important if you want it to last. Because this size is totally something you could use for literally every chest plate on your team. Like if you were a camper and you brought a can of spray paint and this stencil to a camp, you could pretty much bully your entire team into all getting this sigil put on their chest plates, and your whole team would be like way more unified and all look like one cohesive force, and just like have a lot more team camaraderie. And honestly, like as far as camp goes, like number one is probably like who has the vanguards, and number two is like what's an actual team, and that's just about how you win a week at Adventures in Cardboard. Not a whole lot of logistics get used. I think I am going to make a video about like macro fighting. Like I did the other micro fighting. I think I'm going to make a macro one now sometime soon, so be on the lookout for that, I suppose. But team camaraderie is essentially the most important part. And again, the tape that I'm doing here doesn't actually matter, because what matters is really the edges of the stencil, and that's the whole reason why we're doing these middle bits, because it is preserving artificial edges in the middle, which wouldn't normally exist. And the idea being with the wire is that the wire is so thin that it shouldn't matter that there's two little lines here, because the spray paint should be able to permeate around the actual wires and get in deep and actually like spray what we want it to spray, which is the whole Aquilan sigils here. So I think I want to see how my shield is doing, see if the spray paint on that is drying, and if it is, I think we'll bring it back in and maybe try to spray out this stencil and get a blue eagle on top of a black shield. So at first I was really joking about not fearing God and doing spray paint inside, but on second evaluation of the circumstances, I think you should actually probably not do this, especially if you're doing larger projects. I was pretty quick with the spray paint, and I'm going to be pretty quick with the stencil as well. But if you're going to do a whole suit of armor, absolutely do not do it inside. It is currently kind of dark out, and so you wouldn't actually be able to see anything, nor would I, really. And so that's why I'm doing it inside. But if I was going to do a whole set of armor, I would absolutely not want to do it inside. All the rest of the spray paint I've done for larger suits have all been outside. I have a little rock garden that's just a bunch of like rocks around my foundation that I can spray on top of. But large rolls of butcher paper, like 2 of them, that's about like a 4 or 5 foot spread, all laid out on a lawn, is an absolutely perfect place to do spray paint projects. But for this little stencil, I think I'm going to do it right here. So I've got the shield facing upwards. This curved area is the bottom area for me. And I want the Aquila pretty much dead center on the shield. The spray paint underneath isn't fully dry. I imagine there's still little pools, certain places that are wet. But for my purposes, it's dry, like a little bit tacky. So I should not have to worry about it being a substantial issue with this spray paint job. The thing that I will maybe have to worry about that was kind of the whole issue with my Ickerson shield being so incredibly fuzzy. Well, first of all, I was spraying from a pretty substantial distance away, but also the edges of the stencil are kind of lifting away from the shield, and that is an issue. So because there's certain sticks inside the shield, I don't know if I can actually like line this up in a meaningful way, but the shield is somewhat curved. It's kind of bowed out in the middle, and that is a problem for a flat stencil. So either the stencil needs to curve or the shield needs to get flat. In this case, I think we can curve the stencil around the shield. All right, so essentially the problem we have here is that because there's gapping on the stencil, because the shield is rounded, what someone would need to do would be to press down the stencil around the area where you're spraying while you're spraying, so that the gaps all disappear and there are nice strict edges to the stencil. I was gonna try to do this with nails or try to do this with tape, but I think I could just straight up use a piece of bamboo and press these down to stop the gapping, really. I could use that piece of bamboo, but I have a substantially longer one that I think I'm actually gonna use just because I don't want that one to get spray painted. But literally just allow the bamboo to get sprayed and just move it around from place to place while I'm spraying, just to get closer edge definition on the actual piece. Because no matter how many nails I did, being able to like move the actual thing to eliminate gapping as you go around will be more efficient than just doing a ton of different nails. And then it would also mess up the shield underneath, so that'd be a whole thing. I think this just prodding down the stencil is actually going to work pretty well. So, oh, come on. Here goes. Get ready to shake. Bit of a spray test. Excellent. That's going to be some nice color definition. I don't know if the camera can see that circle I just made, but okay, here goes. So our first little spray, I think what I'm going to do, essentially, the easiest things to do, I think, are going to be the corners, because I can press right on the corner and get the whole corner down. So I'm going to do wingtips, and then I might try to do the bottom of this. This thing is going to be a little bit harder down here, the tail feathers, because I could press on the middle, but that really won't help the edge gapping under here. So I might need to like, can I do like chopsticks or something? Press on both of these at once and do them simultaneously. I might do something like that. It might get everything dirty, but so be it. But for now, I will start at the top corners of this Aquila. All right, and that is our Aquila pretty much painted. I'm now going to rather carefully remove my stencil, and I think we shall just see how she did, and then probably put her outside to dry. So obviously the stencil is actively wet, so I'm going to try to not touch it. Come on, lost a little bit of tape. Oh, there was some gapping, it looks like. And the thing I was noticing while I was spraying is I actually got the corners there a little bit. But honestly, I'm not too bummed about that because the stencil looks pretty cool. I kind of like it. I quite like it, actually. I think just because of the hand dominance, I did a better job spraying kind of like from the left to the right and not getting underneath here. But I did actually, honestly, the middle cutouts worked rather well. I'm not too displeased with it. So I think I will put it outside to dry and then maybe try to do some touch-ups just around those little edges. So yeah, there's an Aquila. So now that we've sprayed the shield, I got this golden sword here. And it's obviously not perfectly dry. It'll need to dry overnight for it to be like actually solid, because right now if you smack this against something, the cardboard would like buckle underneath and then the paint would just chip off and come off. But I kind of want to do some edge work. So essentially what I've seen other people do in the past is tip the edge perpendicularly and spray lengthwise down onto the sword to get some edge definition. You kind of saw me doing that with this sword just with the gold paint, because I sprayed all on one side, sprayed on the other side, and then there was still a white border all the way around that I used the spray paint and sprayed it straight down onto the edge all the way around to get the whole edge. It looks like I actually missed some of the tip, and so the tip is still not colored, but the faces are and the edges are honestly pretty good. But now I kind of want to try using this pink marking paint, because it's what I did with the Ickerson logo on the other thing, and try to spray directly downwards onto the sword edge. I'm not sure how this is going to go because I've never tried it before, but I've seen it done before, and I totally think it's possible. I just don't know if it's going to look good. Pink and gold, I honestly don't dislike pink and gold as a color scheme, so yeah. Though I might just do the blade and not do the guard edge, which I did do with the initial gold coat. So for this one, I'm going to want to spray with my dominant hand. And I think here, we'll just test out the pink. Wow, that's some pretty strong color marking. It also produces a lot of paint, so I might want to do like a rather quick pass with the paint when I do it. Let's see. Well, heck, no time like the present. Dang. Let's see, is there a more controlled way I could do this? Maybe I could set it down and spray at it? I might try that. You might get more on one face than the other, but then I could do 4 sides and see how that goes. Huh. I don't know, that might look kind of cool. Yeah, we'll give her a shot. We'll give her a shot. This might muddy up the butcher paper underneath and use more spray paint than necessary, but I think it'll look good, so here. Wow, that was a really thick pink stripe. I kind of missed there. I wish that got on the sword and the other side didn't get on the sword. But now what I bet I can do, I bet I can take a piece of spare cardboard, and while it's still wet, scratch off a bunch of the paint. Oh, it looks like I'm scratching off some of the gold as well underneath. Oh no, I've mucked up the sword. Oh jeez. Well, as we see here, I have terribly messed up. I think what I literally just do is put this outside to dry, give it like half an hour, and then just come back and do another gold coat. In the meantime, I think we should check our Aquila and see how that turned out. So I put a little piece of underneath just to kind of clear the pink away, stop it from getting on the shield, and just mentally freshen up the space. I honestly do not dislike the Aquila. These 2 little pink bands here, or blue bands here, kind of irritate me, but they're really not that bad, or at least not as bad as they could have been. I think what we can totally do though is just put like a cover piece there and just do another black coat. Multiple coats of black spray paint never hurt for a base, though personally I only believe that you really need one. Some people will tell you otherwise, but for AIC stuff, it's going to be breaking so fast. You're going to need to be making more new ones, like anyway. do not expect like the spray paint's gonna outlast the shield because the shield's not gonna last that long anyway. If you need to re-spray paint a anything, you should perhaps be questioning how long you intend for the thing to last anyway. The only exceptions to that would perhaps be paper mache stuff, but even that, and it's definitely relics. If there are any relics that have spray paint on them, so that means plastic or things that have been paper mache and shellacked, and then like color on top of that, those are certain things that could totally be completely primered again and then sprayed again. But really, like the life expectancy of this shield is so unbelievably low that like trying to do another full coat is not at all necessary. Like the stencil is going to be perfectly fine for however long it wants to live. So yeah, might do those last two little touch-up areas and then call it good for this Aquila. So I just did kind of like the top three corners of it. It got pretty close to the top of the wings. The question really is some of these inside little bits. How much do we really want to try to fix those? Because what we could do is put back the inside little area, tape that fixed, and then very gingerly attempt to spray inside these little areas and re-get over that little bit. It is quite tempting. I might want to try it. I might get that blue bamboo piece from outside and just very gingerly try to attempt to fix some of these little areas. Because man, it would be really cool if we like put this, like maybe got a new piece of cardboard, covered pretty much all of the blue that we want to stay good, and then do some touch-up work on the inner triangle. I don't really care about the lower diamond, but that little wing area, or the difference between the tail feathers and that foot, and especially between the foot and the wing, that really could maybe use a little bit of touch-up work. But it's going to be so incredibly dangerous, I don't know. What the heck. What else do I have to do tonight? So, yeah, we'll give it a shot. Alright, so here's where things get dicey. So, I got this little shtick back that I spray painted with the first time on, and I have a piece covering the stuff I want saved. I think I'll actually use the full bit of cardboard here for this. Yeah. And I have the inner of the stencil covering the spot that I want, and I want to try to give a real overlayer. Oh, got my fingers a little bit there. Overlayer and get in these kind of bleed areas. The issue is that if you think it bled out of the stencil, imagine it bleeding back in the stencil. It's going to be 10 times worse. So we got to be really careful here with how we do this. I'm honestly considering going maybe like 10,000 mile height standard and spraying from really high up and letting the mist kind of fall down and only get really what I like, only get straight down on top of the stencil. That's maybe what I should have done from the start. The question is, how are these little side areas going to fare? Because the overlap here isn't as good as it is on the rest of the stencil. So those areas might get covered more than I want them to. So that's kind of concerning. But hey, all we can do is try. And again, in this and in life in general, the price per failure is like laughably low. It's so much better to try, fail, and then literally just do it again, rather than be, oh no, I'm gonna mess it up. Yeah, who cares? Like, it's better to mess it up 100 times and get it right once, and the one time being cool enough to be worth all the 100 failures than to never try at all. So yeah, here goes. Alright, I got everything pretty thoroughly, perhaps more thorough than I intended in some areas. Now we lift her off and see what the damage is. Oh, ho, ho. Ooh, I really like it. I really, really like it. Okay. Now, I want to see if I can get that other side done, that other wing. Yeah. Okay, I really like how that turned out. I bet we can pressure this corner here just the same way we did the other area and get that too, because holy cow, that pops out so much nicer. Yeah, okay. All right, I think we shall lift off and see how she did. Oh, God, that looks so good. Holy cow. Okay. Now, can we get the head? Do you think you can get the head? I don't know. Okay, let us, I bet I can, like, get a piece of, maybe I should get a scarf. Okay, here. I had another piece. Where'd that go? Dang, I hope this turns out good. If it doesn't, hey, that's okay. But if it does, yeah! Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Dang, okay, that really worked. Hold on. I want to get that last little bit. No, I need a hard edge. Oh, that won't work. Yeah, we'll do this again. Okay. Just kind of like that. But this time, spray at an angle, please. And get right along there. Yeah, okay. Very nice. Ooh, I'm kind of in awe of how well that worked. I guess that really is a lesson for you. Hey, it's okay to fail and try again. Or try without fear of failure, for great things can only be gained with some risk. I like it. I really like it. Oh, looks like there's a little wood piece there. Oh, you know what? Okay, there we go. Very nice. All right, I'm gonna let this dry. We'll see how the sword's doing, actually, because I definitely failed on that, but I think it could turn into something kind of cool like this, depending if we put a little bit more work into it. So yeah, we'll switch out and see how that goes. So now here we are back with what I would call the problem child, this sword, which I really did in fact muck up pretty terribly on this side. In fact, I got it so bad that I actually scraped the gold paint off underneath, because this side looks so good. I really want that pink edge though. Like, could you imagine having like a solid pink edge all the way around? I think that would look so cool. But just like with the shield and the risk of failure, I have an idea that might be really good, but I don't know if it's gonna work. But I wanna try it. So essentially what I think I could do is do kind of like the 2-coat layer that I sort of did with the shield. I think I can go over the edges, like completely just slather the edges with pink first, and then do gold on the faces and hopefully leave some of the pink edges to like show through. I'll actually do it on this sheet, so this. Oh god, back to this terrible mess. Anyway, completely pink up the like middle, just completely mess it up, let it dry, and then come back and do the faces. I think that would be like the coolest sort of, because really what I want to have it look like is have an airbrush edge between the edges and the face. I don't want there to be a strict line on the faces. I want it to be like a little bit fuzzy. And the way of doing it fuzzy is the gold spraying or top the pink, which has covered the faces a little bit, but then the gold will cover that and make it look good. So I think what we'll try to do is just literally freehand it once more. Freehand it with a pink, kind of like do it along the edges at a minimum. Let it dry for a little bit, and then do the faces and see how that goes. Or maybe I could do it all at once. So that is a very, very solid pink edge, but it also is a pretty solid pink face on both sides. Switch the other side and get that too, I guess. Yep, it is now in fact a pink sword. There's a little bit of gold along the spine, but pretty much the whole thing is pink. Which, I mean, hey, why not just go full on pink sword time, I guess. I don't know. I don't like this, but I have a vision, and I have a vision of it working. And so, for the sake of this vision, I'm gonna set this outside, let it dry for a little bit, and in about half an hour, we'll come back and see if we can make something cool happen. So yeah. Well, it is a heck of a lot later now, and the shield's all dry, but my terrible travesty of a sword is currently not. I think this might have to be a project for tomorrow, but the video wants to come out tomorrow at 8 in the morning. So I think what I'm going to do is just shelve the sword for later, but dang, this shield came out well. I really like this Aquila. I think it's honestly the best stencil I've ever done. I'm pretty proud of it. This is totally something I think you can put on armor, put on other shields, put on like castle walls even. If you could just like flatten out the stencil a little bit more, maybe do like a 2 or 3 layer stencil so it's stiffer and so you can slam it on the walls easier. But for a shield stencil, this is one of the best ones I've ever made. I'm pretty proud of it. So that's it for me today, I'm pretty sure. So thanks for watching, best of luck, and I'll see you tomorrow for another daily upload.